Yes, Sam.
Okay. Sally, do you mind sharing your screen?
Sure, sir.
Okay. Uh,
Visible?
yes, it's visible, Sally.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to thank everyone, first of all, who's on the call today. Thank you for taking time off on a Friday to attend the webinar. My name is Sam. I am the director for security and analytics at Pozitka. With me, I have my colleague Sayali, who's our security consultant. And of course, the topic of today's webinar is user and entity behavior analytics. We thank all of you for registering for the session today. We hope that the session that we have is something that adds value in terms of your knowledge, in terms of what you were looking for. And during the session, we will have some Q&A session. So feel free to ask any queries you might have. And of course, if there are any questions you might have or something that you want to take away from after the session, you are always welcome to reach out to us. So without further ado, Sahil, if you could just take us to the agenda. So the session today is going to cover a couple of things. First, we wanted to talk a little bit about what UEBA is. I think everyone has heard of it, but we wanted to just cover the basics of what is covered in a UEBA solution. We also wanted to talk a little about why do you need UEBA, given that you have so many other solutions also. So we'll spend some time about that. One of the questions we commonly get asked also is that I have an SIM, do I need a UEBA, and vice versa. So that's a more pointed question. We'll try to answer that, followed by a small case study about how you can detect threats via UEBA. And then finally, we'll move on to a live demo. So the demo in this case, of course, given the number of products, we won't go into all of them. We'll pick one of the leading solutions in the market and we'll do a demo of that. The first few sections will be covered by my colleague Sayali, and then I'll move on to the live demo at the end of it. As I mentioned before, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box. We'll also have a small break at the end of the first section where we'll set aside some time for Q&A. With that, over to you, Sayali.
Thank you, Sam. So as Sam has mentioned, we'll start with the very basics of UEBA. What is the UEBA mean for? So in UEBA, U stands for the user. So user is the current employee. It could be the former employee. It could be the contractor, third-party vendor, and the partners. It could be the defined as the user. So in user acts as insider threat as well. So there are also different types of insider threats. So one could be the careless employee. So normally a company defines the security policies like the password policy or the multiple factor authentication should be in place. If it's not there, then it's because of careless insider, it's easy to attacker to get inside the network. Another is the malicious insider. So user itself has a malicious intent and it does something to steal the data and make harm to the company. The last one is like compromised insider. So someone from the outsider compromised the user account and it does some criminal or threat actions to violate or to steal the data from the company. So this is the user in the UEBA. So next we are is the entity, user and entity behavior analytics. The entity is the anything that user has access to. So it could be the network devices like routers, switches. It could be the server. It could be the endpoint of the user. It's not just only the devices, but it could be also the enterprise application that the user has access to. It could be the IoT devices. So the entity stands for this type of devices and applications. So next is the behavior. So behavioral baseline defines how they usually behave. They means the user and entity, and it and identifies the anomalies based on the deviation from the baseline. So for example, here we can see the normal user does the activities of email activity, connection to the VPN, file activity after connecting to the VPN. So if suddenly if we observe there's a spike in number of emails sent or received by the user, or the file accessed or downloaded by the user, that kind of the actions deviates from the normal behavior. So behavior baseline creates the baseline of the user with its usual activities, and helps to detect any deviation from that. And the next one is the analytics. So it is based on the AI and machine learning algorithm. So it understands what constitutes to the abnormal behavior. So once we have the behavioral baseline, we have to detect the abnormal behavior. So it looks around the thousands of users, not only the users, but also the entities and the peer groups as well. So what the peers are doing, and if user is doing something anomalous or unusual than the peer group is doing. So that is the analytics will help us to detect. So basically, this is the user and entity behavior analytics. So this is what the UEBA stands for. So I'm moving forward to what are the pillars of UEBA. So basically, Gartner coined this term, the UEBA, and Gartner defined the three pillars of the UEBA. So basically, use cases, analytics, and the data. These are the three pillars of the UEBA. So whenever we have something in security tools, the first question is what kind of use cases or detection it provides or it helps to detect us. So basically, the UEBA use cases are based on the threat detection. For example, in insider threat, there are the malicious insider, compromised user. Apart from that, it also helps to detect the APTs and the zero-day threats. It helps to detect the anomalies. Other known threats like lateral movement, data exfiltration, these this kind of threats can be detected using the UEBA. So to detect this threat, it uses the analytics. The analytics is basically the machine learning algorithms. So there are different types of machine learning algorithms like unsupervised, supervised. The future or advanced UEBA also uses the deep learning to identify the exact threats to reduce the false positive, etc. To work this analytics will need the data. So third pillar is of the UEBA is the data. So it requires the data like events, logs, along with the network flows and packets. But apart from the this normal log data, it also requires the data related to business context, the HR and user related data, which will provide the more context to the user. So for example, my role in the company is different and Sam's role is different. So while creating the baseline, we'll need the business context and the HR related data to know the baseline and know the variations from that. So these are the basics around the UEB.
Yeah,
So
we have a question also, Sally, from
okay.
Hiroshi. His question is, what is the difference between UBA and UEBA?
So UEBA is the next version of UBA. In UBA, there was no context added for the entity. It's a user behavior analytics. So it's the advanced one where we add the context of the entity, what kind of devices user is using, and we'll cover how that is mean in the further slides as well.
Yeah. And I think Hiroshi, the other thing is now the names UBA and UEBA are very interchangeable. So whenever someone is saying UBA, they actually mean UEBA and vice versa. I think again Gartner coined the term. So I think for a time there was some lack of clarity about what is the term the industry is going to take. Are they going to say that it's UBA or UEBA as a solution set as a platform? Now I think the industry is geared towards UEBA, so that is becoming more common in terms of nomenclature. They essentially stand for the same thing, but UEBA is the more common name now for this particular platform or solution. Hope that answers your question, Hiroshi. Okay, thank you, Sally. Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
can continue.
thanks, Sam. So this is the UEBA. Then the next question is, why do we need the UEBA? So basically, there are the key challenges in the security, like we have mentioned here: technology, risk, and the operation. The technology is ever evolving. There are so many security tools, security monitoring tools are coming into the picture. So that is one of the key challenge. Next is the risk. So as we can see every day, we are seeing the multiple attacks is happening, data breach and the lateral movement, and the risk has been evolving. And the third main challenge is also around the operation, how to handle these alerts. The SOC has been overwhelmed, so how to handle. So these are the key challenges, are the key drivers for the UEBA. So we'll look around each of them in detail in the further slides. So in terms of technology, as I have mentioned, there are multiple security solutions. Then the question is, why do I need the UBA or UEBA? You can use any term as Sam has mentioned. So in the cloud, if there is a cloud environment, we have the CASB, CSPM. Apart from that, we also have the cloud native tools. If we look around the network, then we have the IDS, IPS firewalls as a security solutions. For the endpoint, we have the EDR antiviruses. Authentication, we have AD and Okta. Then the question is, where does the UBA fit in? So basically, UBA works across the all IT systems and all the data we have mentioned here. So what it does is extract the information and link the connection between the different data we are getting from the different security solutions. So it maps and links the data with the user accounts, user entities and servers to add more context. So for example, if we see this, the user and accounts, the mapping is done between the user accounts and host name, and it helps the UBA to detect the behavior around the account usage and the application uses by the user across the multiple domains. So based on that, we can detect the suspicious behavior around the privileged users or change in the access. And it requires the data of the AD, LDAP, and application logs as well. So it requires the data from across the all the IT system or the security tools available across the IT. So next is, if we see the user and entities, here we can detect the behavior based on the network traffic patterns, and we can find out the outliers from the peer groups or the specific threat patterns like malware or tunneling. Now in this case, it will use the data like the network data, DNS, NetFlow, and VPN. So the context will be the different. Again, the next is, if we see entities and servers, so we can detect the network patterns, and here the data used is based on the network plus the system logs as well. So it adds more context and try to find out the anomalies across the entire organization or the IT infrastructure, we could say. So even if we have this kind of different security solution, we'll need the UEBA, and UEBA will work on top of that. So this is around the technology. Next is the risk. So as we are seeing, the attacks has been increasing, and there is an increase in the insider threats and malicious insider attacks as well. So here I have given some of the examples, like General Electrical employee stole the information and send it out to his private email address. So we have already discussed how the insider threats, types of insider threats. And another example just given here is around the Tesla employee. So that employee has given the access privileges, and he could access the critical data, and he exploited the large amount of data. So these are only just a few examples of recent attacks. Also, there are the predictions and reports are available, which says there is an increase in the data breaches, and out of this, 33% incidents are caused because of the internal users. Nowadays, we also seen there is a remote workforce has been increasing due to the COVID situation. So that will also add the possibility of the insider threat and increase in the breaches. And if you see some statistics here, we can see the 62% privileged users and the accounts are on the radar. So we have to take care and monitor around them. So this is the risk that we have to take care of while looking around the security of the organization. And next is the operational thing. So operational overhead and cost of dealing with it also increasing according to the incidents happening. So these are some figures around that. So SOC is always overwhelmed with the threats, data breaches. So if we see, the research says that 55% of organizations has observed one data breach in last 12 months. So this is the count, and also this is because the alerts has been increasing, and there's a shortage of skills. So it's difficult to handle that very large amount of alerts by the SOC. So that is one of the problem. How it affects the business. So there is a huge business impact due to this incidents and lack of handling the security incidents improperly. So the impact is like the operational disruption, the brand damage, and the main thing of the loss of critical data. And due to this, there could be the violation of the regulatory requirements as well, and that results in the cost. So it cost very high. If you see here, there's an increase almost in 2 years, 31% increase in the total cost. So these are the side effects we could say because of the improper handling or large amount of incidents are there, and it's difficult to handle the alerts and all. So these are the three key risks, challenges, and that's where the UEBA will help.
Sally, I think there's one more question also.
Yeah.
What are the minimum data sources I need for UBA to function?
Okay, so for minimum data sources, we could say the network logs, AD logs to add the context to the user, then the HR related data, DHCP logs. These are the basic logs we'll need to work it properly.
Okay, I hope that answers the question. Maybe we can move on then in that case, Sally.
Okay, so this is the another question. Normally, it's been asked like, is it SIEM versus UEBA? If we have the SIEM, we'll need UEBA and the vice versa. So we'll answer this like it's better together. So it's not the single one will help. Both together will help to find out the known and the unknown threats as well. So if we see the SIEM mostly human driven. So we can create the rules, correlation statistics based on the human driven things, and it does the log aggregation, it collects the logs from the different types of devices. So it's a log aggregation tools. Based on that, we can run the ad hoc query searches, and normally we create the alerts based on the known threats. It's a human driven thing. So it also helps us in the compliance regulatory reporting thing as well. So it's more around, focus is around the finding the known threats and alerting on that. But as we have seen already, the UEBA works on the machine learning. So it's driven by machine learning. There is no human driven aspect in the UEBA thing. So what it does is it finds the anomalies and it finds the risky behavior. It also does the entity profiling and scoring. So if user has done multiple unusual things, but it doesn't really contribute to the threat, but even in that case, it increases the risk score of the user. So we can check the risky users or the risky entities as well. It also uses the kill chaining and sequencing that helps to identify the unknowns in a better way. So when we answer this question, whether it is SIEM or the UEBA, we will say it's better together. So now you can also see the SIEM many SIM are providing the feature as a UEBA, and some of the UEBA are evolving towards the SIM. So it's always goes in hands in hand. So that is the question answer. And how the advanced detection is done using the ML and analytics. So as we have seen, the network logs, identity logs, endpoint logs, those logs has been collected at the SIM, and the machine learning will help them to identify the anomalies. But normally we end up in having the large number of anomalies, and again there is a problem how to handle that. So on top of that, UEBA will help to identify the actual threats, like use cases we can see here, the data exfiltration, lateral movement, based on the sequencing and peer grouping of these anomalies which are found out, and using the machine learning algorithms, it will help us to find the actual threats, actual use cases. So we'll end up with having the actual things with the minimum false positive, and it will be easy to dig deeper further for the analysis. So this is why the UEBA will play a role in addition to the SIM. Can we move further to the case study? If there is no question.
Yeah, I think there are two questions that came up, Sally. One talks
Okay.
about which type of organizations must use UEBA.
Okay, so in that terms, someone is looking for the insider, worried about the insider threat, then they must use the UEBA. Apart from that, the financial data, health data is the uh, crucial data, and who is accessing that, who is operating on that data is must to monitor. Also, they have some compliance requirements as well on how to access data is been accessed and all. So in that case, those organizations must have the UEBA. Apart from that, it's good to have because it does the threat detection in a better way. So that is the answer.
Okay, I think there are a couple more. Maybe we should just finish this section and do the QA, Sally.
Yeah, sure. So we'll move to the case study. So how the threat detection actually done by the UEBA. So here you can see in the analytics, there the patterns and anomalies has been detected. So as I've already mentioned that there could be the anomalies has been detected based on the deviation to the baseline has been created. So we can see the malicious web communication has been observed, unusual DNS traffic has been observed. So it's the analytics detects this based on the deviation from the baseline, and other ML and AI algorithms has been used to do that. So here the detection is the unusual login to the server. So normally user logins to the single endpoint and suddenly try to log into the server, then there is some malicious thing we can observe. Again, the user logins from the different devices, it's also abnormal uh, behavior of the user. Unusual activities by the privileged user, and because of that unusual traffic with the unusual success and failure rate. So the analytics will find these anomalies and the patterns. So for that, it will use the source of data like the network data like web proxy, DNS. But apart from that, it also uses the mapping of the data like user to IP mapping, user to role mapping. So I have mentioned that the apart from the events log, the network data, UBA will need this user related data to add more context, and to find out the threats more accurately. So this data has been used by this analytics, and finally the threats are detected like the data exfiltration by user and the compromised entity, as we have seen the multiple anomalies around the unusual logins from the different users, and finally the unusual activities by the privileged user. So it constitutes to the threat detection of the compromised user. So it not only detects the threats, but it also increase the score for that user and entity. So we can go and check what kind of action has been performed on that device or the entity, and user has done what other things apart from this threat detection. So in this way, the UEBA will help to identify the threats and the risky behavior as well. So this is the part of the case study, which is followed by the live demo by the Sam. So if any question we can take, otherwise over to you, Sam.
Yeah, I think there are two interesting questions, Sally. There's one about does UBA also do automation? And I think Hiroshi has asked a question about the popular ML models. So do you want to do the first one? I can take the second one.
Yeah, so it no, it doesn't do the automation. For that, you'll need the SIM, so it's not intended for that.
Yeah. And Hiroshi, I think you ask a very interesting question. What are the popular ML models used in UEBA? So here, I think it actually comes down to the vendor. There are different OEMs, different vendors who are using different approaches. End of the day, I think it's primarily the use case. So the use case is going to be something like you are trying to find data exfiltration based on different data sources. You are doing some kind of user access monitoring and user anomaly monitoring. So those are the use cases. When you talk about the actual machine learning models behind this, you can actually use a number of things. You can use k-means clustering, you can use classification, you can do regression, you can do component analysis. So it could be one or a combination of these. And again, this gets down to data science really. Each of the UBA platforms that you will see will use different combinations depending on what they think is appropriate. So there's no real answer to it. Well, for example, you are also free to create your own model and then deploy that if the tool allows it, if you think that's more appropriate. So it can be any of those models. It can be something different. It's really down to what the data scientist thinks is the most valuable algorithm, if that answers it for you, Hiroshi. I think there's also a question about which are the leading UEBA products. You want to take that, Sally?
Yes, so there are the multiple leading products like Exabeam, Securonix, Splunk UEBA. These are the top leaders in the market.
Great. Are there any other questions? Do we have open source tools? Okay, I think Hiroshi has asked another interesting question. Do we have any open source tools for UBA? You want to take that, Sally?
There are some of the tools which are open source, but they are not that full-fledged to uh, detect the threats. They are there, but they are not that much effective.
Yeah, that is a very good question, Hiroshi, because we were also looking at something along the same lines. If you look at the SIEM side, for example, you have a lot of open source equivalents that have come out which challenge some of the established vendors. So UBA again, there are, like Sally said, some products that we were looking at, some platforms we are looking at, but most of them are very, very early stage at the moment. They don't have the level of sophistication or the polish that the more evolved proprietary platforms have. So we couldn't actually find anything in the market that was outstanding in terms of open source. Everything that is there on the market right now, the tools that Sally mentioned, for example, Securonix, Exabeam, Splunk UEBA, IBM, these are all large conglomerates where they have packaged their ML models into their product, and they don't show the code, or you can't dig under it to see what they're doing. So it's very, very proprietary at the moment. But presumably that will change over time as UBA becomes more mainstream. Okay, I think that was the last question we have on here. So maybe I'll shift gears at this point. Thank you so much, Sally, for the first section. I will shift gears at this point, and I will jump into a live demo Of course, because of the number of platforms that we have, it's not possible to demo everything. So what we have chosen for today is Splunk's UBA product. It's called Splunk UBA, Splunk User Behavior Analytics, and you should be able to see that on my screen. So again, I think the purpose of the demo today, because we wanted to keep it generic, is not to talk about Splunk UBA in particular, but to highlight some of the features that you would find in most UBA products, which will be common across different platforms you look at, be it Securonix or Exabeam. It'll be similar to a large extent. The presentation might be different. The way they have maybe done some of the dashboard, the logic, it might be a little different, but overall you should see something similar for all UBA platforms. So one of the core things, of course, that you will notice is that the information is being pumped in, like Sayali had said earlier. In this case, for example, there'll be some kind of a view that tells you that these are all the different kinds of data sets that are pumping in, and typically these will be from the network, they'll be from the endpoints, and they'll be around user authentication. So your UBA platform should typically have some way for you to look at the data that's coming in and what kind of breakout of the data is. This is more under the hood though. Typically you wouldn't go in and look at this when the platform is set up. The other part of it, of course, the heart of it becomes what we had spoken about earlier. You have users, so your UBA platform should allow you to get a view of users. You should be able to look at the entities or the devices. Then you also have the apps. So what is the actual protocol or application that is being utilized in terms of communicating between the devices by the users? And based on the information you're getting from all of this, you would finally, of course, have your anomalies that are being detected, and not all anomalies are necessarily a threat. So your UBA tool again should give you some way to filter out from the anomalies what are the threats in your environment. So based on that, I'll just take a quick dive into what you would typically expect to see in each of these areas. So if you have apps, and this is actually something fairly common that you will see even on firewalls. If you look at cloud access security brokers, the app context is actually very important. Are you talking about some kind of a protocol? For example, are you talking about SSL, SSH, FTP? So all of this, of course, will come from your network traffic logs. You might also have certain executables that are being run. So if you click on it, ideally your platform should be able to tell you information about what are the different protocols, what are the different kind of threats that have been detected, who are the users and the entities that are associated with any suspicious activity around that particular application context. So all of this ideally should come under your app section. And again, this is something that as an analyst, typically you would not necessarily want to look at because this is not what gets surfaced as a threat. But if you are double clicking and deep diving, you should have the flexibility. Your tool should allow you to go through this level of detail to find out what's happening along these different dimensions. Uh, More important, I think, is the devices. So again, typically when you talk about UBA and devices, the broad classification you will see is it's going to be either an internal device or is going to be an external device. And then from that point on, of course, you can add a lot of classifications. For example, you might be able to add it to different kinds of listings. You might have a blacklisted device, or you might have some watch list for more critical devices. So all of those things you can do, but at the bare minimum, you should know what is internal, what is external. And then if you start going through it, you should start getting, again, your UBA platform should allow you to collect all the information about your device or your asset. So what is the IP address, of course, what is the MAC, what is the scope. It will also consolidate so this is interesting. In the case of Splunk, for example, what it does is it's going to try and figure out yeah, it's going to try and figure out which are the peer groups. So if this, in this particular device, which is 10.11.23.50, which peer group does it fall within? And if you want to actually even, and this is where I think the interesting thing comes out when you look at all of these devices here. You'll have 5,000 devices, for example. You've got 5,000 devices listed here. Your UBA solution should ideally actually be looking at the behavior of all of these devices, and then it should automatically be using machine learning to classify and categorize what are the different kinds of common groups it's seeing. So here, for example, for our data set, Splunk UBA has identified that there are 12 device groups. So these are the 12 device groups is identified. Now, if I click on this, it says that this exhibits client-like behavior. This particular group, okay, this behaves more like a domain controller. So this seems to be something that's more of a domain controller group. These are all the devices that exhibit that behavior. If I look at something like this, file sharing. So there are 12 servers, for example, over here that seem to be associated with using some file sharing service. So the reason for this segregation, of course, that might be apparent. This is so that it will establish a baseline of what is the common behavior for a server or a device that falls within these groups, and is there any drifting from that pattern that's observed. And then, of course, the heart of it is really the users. So again, the users, there'll be multiple users that are being monitored. This will again be picked up from your HR records. It will be from the observed traffic that's happening, the user accounts that are being floated up. And then if you start drilling down into the actual users, this is the heart of UBA. So this is where you are actually looking at risky users also. So typically UBA platforms, once they have a user identified, they'll be keeping track of all the activity they see around that user. That one user might have multiple accounts, multiple devices, he might be doing multiple activities. So typically a UBA solution will look at the external risk summary. So for example, in the case of Splunk, the way they have done it is they've got this pentile, which talks about some of the things that are called that are deemed worthy of being an external risk. So it'll look at denied connections, risky connections, adware site visits and all, and based on that it tells you where does your user lie. So here it says that this particular user is in the 90th percentile, and the reason for that primarily looks to be there are a lot of denied connections, and then you get some details around that. When you go to insider risk, again there are certain behaviors that constitute insider risk. So it could be risky applications, outbound traffic, job search site visits, failed logins. So again, that user or that user account should get categorized within this to find out how risky is that user. And then of course, the anomalies themselves. So you're going to have a whole bunch of anomalies that get generated. So how is the user performing in terms of the anomalies that they are generating? So these are, I guess, some of the core pillars for UBA that we had spoken about earlier. So users and entities, right? So these are the users and entities, and that is the base of what forms any UBA solution. The next layer is the anomalies and the threats. And before I go there, I will I'll illustrate what Sayali had said earlier. So what you have is, of course, the data. That is the first step. But then you have a lot of uh, different models that are being generated. So for example, if I look at this particular model, now I'm looking at the anomaly models that are there on Splunk UBA. So Splunk UBA has a lot of predefined models. And Hiroshi, I think this is again back to your question. These are models that are designed and implemented under the hood by Splunk in this case. So they are using network data, firewall data. There'll be other different models also, which are and they're applying all those machine learning models, be it clustering or regression and outlier analysis, to figure out if there is a case of excessive data transmission. So the anomaly is excessive data transmission. To detect if there is excessive data transmission, all of these different kinds of data sources are used, and you'll have machine learning models operating on all of them. Like that, you'll have hundreds of models that are running to just find the anomaly. The second step becomes every anomaly is not necessarily a threat. So you also need to have some kind of threat models. So here, for example, one very common threat model in most organizations, in most platforms, will be data exfiltration. So now again, if you look at this, we saw excessive data transmission as an anomaly model. So there will be a lot of other anomaly models, like I said. So for example, there'll be other things about excessive data getting printed out. That's coming from your printer data. There might be data that's coming from your cloud data. There might be data that's coming from your DLP solutions, from your network solutions, from USB getting plugged in. So all of these anomaly models are running on all of these different kinds of data points, metrics that you are getting into your platform. And based on that, finally, you are saying that if all of these models flag that there is a unusual activity worthy of being deemed a threat, then you'll get the data exfiltration float up at the end of all of this. So there's all of this, again, there's no real intervention from the analyst, from the user, from the customer who's using the platform. All of these things are happening under the hood. All we are doing is integrating the data sources, and then all of these anomaly models are running, and then the threat model is running on top of that to find out whether data exfiltration is happening. If it happens, then that is what will get floated out to the analyst view, which is basically your threats and anomalies. So let me go to an example also of how the threat will look like in the case of UBA platform. So most UBA platforms tend to make it very visual. If I look at this, for example, data exfiltration by compromised account. So this threat has been triggered, and then here there's a small summary of who are all the participants. Now, if I double click on it, a number of things will start becoming apparent. One is there's a threat score that is generated. So because it's a threat, there'll be differing, again, different organizations, different vendors will do this threat classification differently. In the case of Splunk, 6 is the highest. In this case, they have rated this as a 5 in terms of the confidence. So typically, again, all of this is tied to the UBA platform, the way it's configured when you set it up the first time. But essentially, based on all of those models, based on the context it's seeing, it's going to give you some kind of a risk score or a threat score. In this case, we are seeing data exfiltration by compromised account. And then here you have a nice view of the timeline itself. So when was the first anomaly seen? When was the last anomaly seen? Then actually you can start clicking in and seeing what were the specific anomalies. So the reason this particular threat was triggered is because excessive data transmission was seen. One example of that, LAN speed violation, one example of that, machine generated beacon, one example of that, and then four examples of scanning activity. So these are the 7 anomalies that were seen, which is why the threat was generated. And tied to that, you have 2 users and 11 separate devices. We also spoke about the apps. So we are seeing that this is happening on TCP. TCP will be more for scanning, presumably. SSL will be the actual session that was established. We're also seeing that there's an external domain that was involved. And finally, I think, so this is the table. And then typically you will usually have some kind of a visual view also. And that this gives you a bird's eye view of what actually happened. So we see that Bill Lundquist, who logged in from this machine, used TCP to do all of these activities. There was scanning, there was LAN speed violation, there was a machine generated beacon, and then the machine generated beacon itself was sent to this external domain, report 18354.mydns. If you look at the LAN speed violation, it says why was it a LAN speed violation. If there was scanning activity, it says that it was to all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 5 of these devices. And you can typically click through to all of these also to investigate more, just to make sure there's no false positive. So if you click on scanning activity, for example, what you see here is there were 4 instances of scanning activity in this case. So if I click on scanning activity again, there's a lot of detail typically that you will get here. It tells you that this particular IP, this particular host 1045 did scanning activity. And then you'll notice that the scan was done on port 3389. And you'll also notice that it was 1 scan per day. So a very low number of scans trying to stay under the radar. Typically, SIM solutions will find it difficult to pick up something like this because this is one machine that is scanning 6 machines once a day. So SIM tools typically won't pick it up because then you'll get flooded with too many alerts. But in this case, because you're looking at all these different kinds of anomalies, this sort of bubbled up to the top, and now we are getting to take a look at that. Similarly, if you look at LAN speed violation, so LAN speed violation by itself, the SIM tool might be able to pick it up, but here you know that this is in conjunction with a number of other things that happen during the same time. What has happened in this case here is We see that AnyConnect VPN session was started first from the US, and then it was started from South Korea, and this was actually within just 1 hour. So 3:56 p.m. and 5 p.m. So it's impossible for someone to physically travel from the US to South Korea within 1 hour. So this got picked up by Splunk UBA, and again there's a nice representation here also to show the same thing. And if I go and look at the machine generated beacon again, so machine generated beacon typically is something that happens frequently. So if you have a server and it's reaching out to an update server, maybe once in 15 minutes, once in 30 minutes, you will see some kind of beaconing activity. But in this case, we are seeing that it's 43 minutes apart. So again, and we are seeing that it's an external site. And if you want to go and take a look at what that site is, you can actually go in and take a look at that on VirusTotal, on who is and so on. So depending on the tool, sometimes you have integration, sometimes you don't. In this case, you can go and take a look at this domain, see if there is anything suspicious about it. But the beaconing period is actually a little unusual, 43 minutes, and that is why Splunk UBA has picked this up. So yeah, as you can see, so this whole view, it's actually, if you were an analyst, what you would essentially get is you would get one alert that says there was a data exfiltration by a compromised account. And then once you start investigating, you have at your fingertips all of these visual representations to tell you whether there is really something going on or not. There are other views also that are equally useful. So here, for example, you can say these are the anomalies. It gives you a timeline view. So May 19 to May 26, during that 6-day period, what has happened? You see that there was a land speed violation initially. Then there was a beaconing, which is basically possibly a infected host communicating back to its command and control server. And then you see that there was scanning happening for 4 days. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and then there was a small pause. Potentially, that's where the attacker got access to your system, and then he's laying low at this point because he does not want to trip any of your alerts from your other systems. And then after 3 days, he's actually finally doing the data transmission. So this whole sequence, again, as you can imagine, in a typical SIEM or IPS IDS or most solutions, some of them might pick up one of these, but it's very difficult for point solutions to actually pick up this whole story. Your DLP solution might pick up this part of it, that there was data transmission. Then your SIEM might be able to pick up the land speed violation. But all of this happening together over 6 days or 1 week and all, that is something that most tools will struggle with. But here, because machine learning is being applied, Splunk UBA is able to pick up the patterns, and it's able to surface this as a potential threat that you should be looking at. And again, there's also kill chain here. So again, 19 through 26, you are seeing that all these anomalies, they are being tagged to either intrusion or to expansion or to the final stage, which is impact and exfiltration. So this is how a typical UBA solution would work. Again, this, like I mentioned at the beginning of the session, this is more about how Splunk UBA does it. But if you look at any other platform also, be it QRadar or Securonix or Exabeam, ideally you should have similar, if not the same elements, and they should be giving you a similar view. At the heart of it, I think UBA, the advantage of UBA is that there's not a lot of configuration that you have to do as an end user, as a customer. It's all happening behind the scenes because of the models that are running. But in terms of the analyst, in terms of the end output, you should be able to get some of these simplified views that are coming out and telling you what is the anomaly in your system and what can you do about it. So I think this was a small demo about Splunk UBA, but I'll pause here maybe in case anyone might have any questions. Okay. Pramod has asked an interesting question. Pramod is asking that the SIEM, for example, enterprise security, can be used for threat detection and MITRE analysis. What additional features does UBA give apart from user threats? So this is essentially focused on the user, Pramod. So I think you asked this question a little while back. I think as part of the demo, possibly some of the questions that you had around this might have been cleared up. The SIM will typically struggle, like I said, with very low-lying threats which are in your system for a long period of time. So you can still look for it, but you'll have to write the correlation rule, the SIM rule, to catch that particular situation. And it's very painful because it pushes the burden to the SOC analyst. In the case of UBA, like I said, it's more of a plug and play. You are not supposed to do anything. The solution should be floating those up for you instead of you having to write up all those rules. So that would be the, I guess, answer to your question, Pramod, in case that makes sense. Okay, I think there's also a question from, yes. Exactly, you're right, Pramod. So the, yeah, in the case of any SIM, so again, to be very clear, and I think Sayali also mentioned this earlier, a lot SIEM and UBA are actually converging. So a lot of what we saw here, it can definitely be done on the SIEM. The only thing is you have to do a lot of configuration because you will have to write the rules. Most SIEMs, Splunk, for example, as an SIEM, it allows you access to machine learning models. So you can choose to develop those models on your own on the SIEM and deploy it. It will work, but then again, of course, you have to put in a lot of effort. You have to have the right skill sets. You need to have possibly data science people if you want to set up the algorithms. So that is a challenge with the SIEM side, which is why more SIEMs are gravitating towards having UBA as a add-on module or as something that they integrate with. In terms of, okay, Ganga also has a question. Any challenges in setting up UEBA? There are certain challenges with UEBA, Ganga. One of the challenges, for example, is the data quality. So because all of this is built on machine learning, once you integrate the data, suppose there is typically a period of learning that happens 3 to 4 weeks. So after you deploy your model, if you find out later that the model that you had set up was incorrect, so you did some wrong mapping or the data quality was poor, then essentially you'll have to restart from scratch. You'll have to do the data integration again. You'll have to do that learning exercise again. So it'll be another 3 to 4 weeks before you start seeing the results of your changes. So that's one challenge. I think the other challenge that also comes in on UBA is, again, I think it ties back to what Hiroshi had asked. So what are the machine learning models in the backend, right? So here the amount of customization that you can do will be limited depending on the solution or the platform you are selecting. Most tools will allow you to do some level of whitelisting, blacklisting, have some watch list so that you can tell the model which entities are more relevant. But most times, many solutions will not let you create your own models or create your own threat or anomaly detection model. So that, again, if you have a very specific uh, uh, use case that you want to deploy, that might not always be possible. In the case of Splunk, they do allow you to set up certain new models, but again, it's again something that's not very sophisticated in term if you want something to be done by yourself. Great. I think we are also almost at the end of the hour. I'm wondering if anyone else might have any questions. Do UEBA tools provide alerting email trigger options like SIEM tools? Good question again, Hiroshi. So it depends again on the UEBA tool. Sorry. So there are different aspects of it. So there might be a standalone UBA tool, for example, or there might be an SIEM that also has UBA. So in the cases, for example, where you have an SIEM and a UBA working together as a single component, then typically the SIEM will provide that functionality for alerting an email trigger and so on. If it is a pure play standalone solution, then again, some vendors will have that functionality, some won't. In the case of Splunk UBA, for example, it actually does not have any alerting or email triggering option, because here it will integrate with Splunk or any other SIEM, and it will depend on that other tool for the alerting functionality. So unfortunately, there's no right answer here, Hiroshi. It depends on the tool, the way they have set it up. I think we'll have to check with the vendor on what is the specific functionality they provide. around alerting and email triggering. I think there's also a question from Denver. Can UBA help in identifying configuration-based baselining? Okay. So I'm assuming, Denver, you're talking about changes, right? So for example, is someone making changes to firewalls or based on syslog, is there a change to configurations, those kinds of things? Is that? Okay. So again, I think good question, very good question, Denver. So I think that again comes down to the platform again. In the case of Splunk, for example, I haven't seen a model specifically around the configuration yet. But that's not to say that you cannot deploy it. In that case, again, you'll have to figure out a way to get a custom data model that looks at syslog, for example, or your system logs. And then based on that, you'll have to figure out a way to develop a model that does it. So some tools, some UBA tools might have that. I'm not sure which ones do. I haven't seen that before. But again, it becomes vendor dependent again, unless you have your own model in mind, and if your preferred tool allows you to deploy that model. Great. I think we are at the end of the hour now, 1 p.m. now. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Thank you for all the questions. I think these were very insightful questions, and we really appreciate everyone's time. Look forward to engaging with you again on future webinars. In case you have any questions, of course, please do feel free to reach out to us. And I wish everyone a great weekend that's coming up. Thank you so much, everyone.